looks like it's working. Okay. So I made this post. This is my old name on Reddit. I changed it to match my streaming name right now. But what I wanted to say was, so I made a YouTube video about Curious Glimmerroot because it was in one of my 12-win priest runs, and there's an interesting thing that goes on when you pick the card from Curious Glimmerroot. Usually you want to pick a card that's useful to you. Like even if you get the right card, you choose the right card. If it's something that's not going to be useful at all, it's probably not worth trying to pick that one. And then when you're picking the card, you want to consider how likely it is that that card was offered, and how likely it is that your opponent picked it for his deck. So in my video, for example, one time I got shown Fireball, Blizzard, and I think it was the epic removal that does this however much damage to a minion that it costs, Forbidden Flame or something like that. And so I made this little chart that shows you the offer, how many times per draft you expect to get each of these. Let me scroll up a little bit. Oh, whoops, sorry about that. Let me fix that. Yeah, how many times per draft you're expected to get each type of card. So like Fireball would be a class common spell, and Blizzard is a class rare spell. So those are offered at the same rate. Your opponent, 0.7 times per draft, they will be offered one of those cards. Blizzard, there are some rare cards that are better than Blizzard. Fireball, there are not really very many cards that are better than Fireball. So that means that it's most likely that, oh yeah, and the epic was Forbidden Flame. So class epic spell is down here offered half as often. So it's twice as likely that he was offered a Fireball or Blizzard than the Forbidden Flame. And Fireball is much better than the other commons. So it was very likely that he chose, it was slightly more likely that he chose Fireball than Blizzard, because they were offered at the same rate, and you almost always pick Blizzard. But there are a couple cards you pick over it, whereas Fireball there's almost none. So that kind of was one of the ways that I was able to think, like, all right, I think it's Fireball. Another time, I was offered, with Glimmerroot, I was offered, so let me just, in case you're confused or not aware, what Curious Glimmerroot is a priest card. It's a 3-mana, 3/3, and it says, Battlecry, discover a card from your opponent's deck. No, that's not exactly what it says. It says something more like, it'll show you 3 cards, and one of them is in your opponent's deck, and you're trying to guess which one. And if your opponent has class cards, any class cards in their deck, which they probably did, it will show you one of those class cards. I believe it can show you cards that they've already played. So if you have like a tracker or something, or if you remember, you can just pick the card that they already played because you know which card it is, right? So all this conversation applies for when you don't know what card it is, right? It won't show you 2 cards that they had already starting in their deck. So they might have played a generation spell and played a Fireball, and they might not have a Fireball in the deck, and you see the Fireball and you click it and it won't work because that Fireball was not in their deck to start with. Anyway, okay, so that's how the card functions. And then these offering rates can help you figure out which card is, better to pick. Another time, I played it. I was playing against Mage again. It had Primordial Glyph and Blizzard, and so on here it shows that a Journey to Ungoro class epic spell is offered 0.7, the same as a class rare spell like Blizzard. So those 2 cards are actually offered at about the same rate. I went with the Glyph, and I was right that time. Yeah, so this can kind of just help you. Basically, if it's a Journey to Ungoro card and it's not legendary, it's more likely than any of the other cards, right? And then commons and rares are offered about the same rate. Rares, I think, are actually slightly higher. These numbers are all rounded. But they're close enough that, in general, you just want to pick the one that you think will fit your game plan better for that game. So the better card that will fit your game plan best That's kind of common. Like one time I was offered like a legendary that wasn't even from Journey to Ungoro, so those are offered like 0.05, 1 out of 20 decks, and a rare from Ungoro. The legendary was way better, but I just took the rare because it's offered like 2 times 8, 16 times more often. So this is how you can like use that card. This is a little story about how you can use this card if you ever play Priest. I think it's a pretty good card. It discovers a class card sometimes, most of the time. Like I used it 7 times and I got the card 6 of them. I'm not sure what rate you can actually expect to get it at, but I think it's usually like pretty easy choice in general. Like there's usually one card that's just terrible, or it's like a legendary, so it's probably not that one, right? And then there's 2 cards that are like, okay, I would pick either of these cards, and then one of them's more likely to be offered than the other, and you pick that one.